The hot stove is finally heating up, but not for the Atlanta Braves. We'll talk about the latest free agent signings and preview the winter meetings where there's expected to be a lot of moves. But again, will the Braves be involved? We'll discuss all that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves, where you can send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast. Always enjoy hearing from you. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, and leave me a comment down below. And if you're listening on the audio version, make sure you leave me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. And right now, if you're getting your Spotify wrap, make sure you tag us on social media. Love to hear that from you. Thanks for all of you who have already done so. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the free agent signings. There's just been so many over the weekend. I needed to jump on and talk about those, even though the Braves haven't been involved. And also just preview the winter meetings starting officially on Monday with teams and everybody arriving on Sunday. And we could get some big deals, maybe even while we're recording this on Sunday night. I'm also going to talk about Jhancarlos Lara and our Miners Monday updates, technically our Monday episodes. Looking forward to that. Still one of the prospects I'm most excited about in this system. And you can get into the NFL action on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, it's been a busy weekend, so I really wanted to jump on and talk about all these free agent signings that have happened, because there's been a lot of them. And again, Braves not involved in any of them. But some of these were guys that we've talked about. At this point, we've talked about everybody, but I think at some point or another, many of these guys are players we thought the Braves could go after that would make sense. And clearly at the top of that list is Willy Adames. And Willy Adames got 7 years, $182 million from the Giants. And we talked about it all offseason, the fact that he's going to get overpaid. And it's really hard to say that he's getting overpaid. It's the free market. And the price is what it is. And that's just, that's the going rate. You want to get Willy Adames, you're going to have to pay big money. And the Braves weren't willing to do that. Again, do I think Willy Adames is, worth that type of money? No. Did I think Dansby Swanson was worth that type of money? No. Would I love to have either one of them as my shortstop right now? Yes. But it never made sense that the Braves, I'm saying makes sense. It's not my money. I need a shortstop. He's the best one available on the free market. You go get him. It just never felt like he was ever going to be in a price range that the Braves were comfortable with. Again, if the Braves weren't willing to give that money to Dansby Swanson, who was a team leader, who was a Gold Glover, I didn't think they were going to give it to Willy Adames. I posted this on my social media. Both of these guys, I believe 7 years for each of them. Twice, Willy Adames had an F4 over 3.3 once. Dansby Swanson had an F4 over 3.3 before their free agent deals, and they both got mega deals. 7 years, 182 for Adames. I believe it was 7 years, 170 or 177 for Dansby Swanson. That's why you want to get to free agency. Again, I like these players. I would love to have them as my shortstop. It's just a lot of money for guys who had some ups and downs even in their career. And Dansby's been, a 4 to 5 WAR player since joining the Cubs, but most of that is for what he still gives you defensively. And that's valuable. I'm not saying it's not. Obviously, I'm the defensive guy here, but it's what happens when you get to free agency. Like I said, it's not necessarily even an overpay. It's what the cost is. And if you want these players, you're going to have to spend big money. And Alex Anthopoulos is not going to spend big money like that. Until he does it, again, I say this all the time, until he does it, I'm not going to believe that it happened. Yeah, maybe he flirted with doing it last year with Aaron Nola, but he still has yet to do it. He's yet to give out a long-term deal to a free agent like this. We'll do an extension, sure, but he's yet to sign a top free agent to big money. So again, until that happens, I'm just never going to assume that it's going to happen. And that's why I never thought the Braves were in on Willy Adames. But good for him going to San Francisco. He gets that money. Again, I like Willy Adames. He's a great player. I think he's a great clubhouse guy as well from my time covering him with Milwaukee. I would have loved to have him as my shortstop, but the Braves were just never going to match that or even come close to that. Tyler O'Neill signed a 3-year, $49.5 million deal with the Orioles. Now, this deal seems more doable in terms of, price and AAV. That's not bad for a guy like Tyler O'Neill. And we've talked about him, and many of you have asked, kind of like with Adames, should the Braves trade for him? He seems like a fit for the Braves. My hangups with Tyler O'Neill is that twice in 7 years, he's played more than 100 games. He just can never stay healthy. He can never stay on the field. He also struggles against righties, and that's, not great. That's what you're going to see most of the time. But again, it's not a terrible price. I didn't think that was a huge overpay for what he can potentially bring you if he can stay healthy. So that's one, too, where obviously the Braves need an outfielder. Tyler O'Neill, 3 years, $49.5 million. Not a bad deal. And he goes to the Orioles. So good for them. They're moving in their fences there. Hopefully that's going to, or maybe that'll help Tyler O'Neill a little bit. Not that he needs a ton of help with those huge biceps looking like me out there. But I thought that was a good move for the Orioles. And again, I'm not saying the Braves should have done that deal. There's certainly a lot of risk that comes with Tyler O'Neill and his injury history. But I didn't think that was a terrible deal for the Orioles. Next one is Clay Holmes. He gets 3 years, $38 million with the Mets. I liked him as a setup replacement for the Braves, somebody to replace Joe Jimenez. If you could get him on a 3-year, $30 million deal, which is what I think MLB trade rumors had predicted for him, I thought that would have been a solid move for the Atlanta Braves, but the Mets are going to give him a chance to start. Very similar to what we saw the Braves do with Ronaldo Lopez last year. The Mets will give him an opportunity. If he works out as a starter, great. If not, it's not a great price for a setup guy. And, by the way, a guy who was a closer but lost his job last year. I still think Clay Holmes has great stuff, and it's why I wanted the Braves to go get him. Again, you would have asked me this time last year, and I would have said, no way Ronaldo Lopez sticks in a rotation. So I hate to just sit here and say, I don't think there's any way that Clay Holmes sticks in a rotation, but I'd be surprised if Clay Holmes has what it takes to be in the rotation. But the Mets did a good job last year with Sean Manaea, with Luis Severino and others. So maybe they have something there with Clay Holmes. Maybe they get Frankie Montas on board. Again, you look at that Mets rotation right now, it might be really good, but just right now, the names they have on there, they don't scare me. After Kodai Senga, and I don't know what he's going to look like. Are they going to have to go to a 6-man rotation for him? But it's not a rotation that scares me. And they're obviously not done. They can do other moves. I mean, it would surprise me if they went out and got Corbin Burns or Max Fried. But I did like Clay Holmes for the Braves as a reliever. I wasn't really thinking about him as a starter at the time, but he's going to get that opportunity with the Mets. So we'll see how that goes. I don't think that's a terrible overpay. Again, especially if he does become a starter. Shane Bieber gets 1 year, $14 million with the Guardians with a player option for 2026 for $16 million. He's going to make $10 million in 2025. It has a $4 million buyout as part of that 2026 deal that he has. This is one where we thought maybe the Braves could take a chance on a pitcher who is looking to regain their stock, might only pitch half of next year, so you don't know for sure what you're going to get out of him. But as we were looking for some cheap options for the Atlanta Braves, or at least some short-term options for pitching, which is what Alex does seem to like to go after, felt like this one would have made a lot of sense. I would not have been mad at all if this was a move that the Braves made. But obviously Shane Bieber, having been with Cleveland, staying with them, going to try to recoup his value there and hit the market probably again next offseason. But again, would not have hated this deal for the Atlanta Braves if they made that one. And let me know, which of these deals do you think the Braves could have done, should have done? Again, the Willie Adames one was just never going to happen. That's probably the one that people want the most. Tyler O'Neill, I think, made some sense. I don't love it. But again, if he stays healthy, I think he can be a solid player. Clay Holmes, it's a little bit over what he was predicted to get. But again, if they're trying to make him a starter, then that makes some sense. I think the Shane Bieber one is the one that probably makes the most sense to me as a Braves fan, because it just feels like a deal that Alex would have done. But maybe Shane wanted to go back to Cleveland where he was and where he's been comfortable. And then the final is Danny Jansen gets 1 year, $8.5 million with the Rays. Again, at this point, it feels pretty obvious that the Braves aren't going to go out and get a backup catcher, that they're going to roll with Sean Murphy and Chadwick Trump. That could always change, but that's what it feels like right now because you missed out on Higashioka. Now you missed out on Danny Jansen. I thought those were two of the more obvious candidates out there if you were going to get somebody substantial to pair with Sean Murphy. But at this point, I still think they're going to go out and get a veteran for depth at the minor league level. Maybe a Yasmani Grandal or something like that. But those were the two names that I highlighted, Higashioka and Jansen. They're both now off the board, along with Travis d'Arnaud has gone to the Angels. So it's looking more and more likely Sean Murphy is going to be the guy. And that's okay with me. I can't wait to see what he can do if he can stay healthy in 2025. But a lot of moves happening lately. There's probably going to be a lot more happening. We could see some again, even while we're recording or late on Sunday night. So be on the lookout for that with the winter meetings picking up. We'll get back into our winter meetings preview in our final segment. But next, I'm going to tell you about the prospect that I was most excited about last offseason. And I'm going to tell you why I'm still extremely excited about Jhancarlos Lara, even after a little bit of a disappointing season. We'll discuss him here next. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. This year, skip the holiday hustle and bustle and save 50% off site-wide during their cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, get a $30 reward card when you shop early and score an extra $30 off with promo code MLB. With 5 generations of experience, Omaha Steaks consistently delivers the world's best steak experience, and their gifting experts have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages starting at $89.99. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide during the cyber sale at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with the promo code MLB and a $30 reward card when you shop early. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with the promo code MLB. Minimum purchase may apply. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Should be a busy week here on the podcast, hopefully, with the winter meetings underway. And again, a lot of moves that need to take place and likely a lot of big moves happening during the winter meetings that we're all waiting on here. But before we get back into the winter meetings and what we might see this week, I want to do our Minors Monday spotlight here. Talk about Jhancarlos Lara. Let me know, where are you at on Jhancarlos Lara? One of the most hyped prospects last offseason, at least by me. He was one of the guys, he and Schwellenbach were probably the two guys that I was impressed with the most, and also J.R. Ritchie, what we saw before he got injured. Those are probably the three guys that impressed me the most watching them last offseason. And just briefly recapping on Jhancarlos Lara, signed for $10,000 out of the Dominican Republic in 2021. He'll turn 22 this January. 6'3", 190. Watching him this year, he looked much bulkier. He looked much stronger than he did the previous season. And I think the velocity has ticked up as well, maybe partially due to that. Again, looks like a guy that has an athletic frame. Again, he looks even stronger. His build looks even better this year. 2022 at the DSL level, he had a 1.78 ERA, but a 1.52 whip in 9 games started, 30 and a third innings. He only allowed 20 hits, but he gave up 26 walks with 38 strikeouts. And then 2023, mostly at single A, he did get 2 starts at high A. He made 15 starts in 20 games, 81 and a third innings pitched, a 4.09 ERA, 1.25 whip. So he's able to bring that down, just 60 hits allowed in those 81 and a third innings. It's a 2.04 average against, but 42 walks and 114 strikeouts. And what he really did well at the end of 2023 that had everybody excited going into 2024 is that in the second half of 2023, he cut down on those walks significantly, going from a 7.7 walk per 9 to just over 4 walk per 9. And again, that's even better towards the end of the year for Jhancarlos Lara. But now in 2024, he saw the walks go back up. He pitched in 15 games at high A, 14 starts, a 3.92 ERA, not terrible, but a 1.47 whip. 62 innings pitched there at high A, only 55 hits, but 36 walks. Did have 72 strikeouts. It's a 10.45 K per 9. That is great. He has big stuff, but a 5.23 walk per 9. That's bad. That's not going to get it done. And then he did get bumped up to Double A at the end of the year, made 5 starts, a 3.92 ERA there as well, which is kind of crazy, but a 1.89 whip. 20 and 2/3 innings, only allowed 15 hits, but 24 walks and 22 strikeouts in those 20 and 2/3 innings. That's a 9.58 K per 9, still solid. a 10.45 walk per nine. Not good at all. One of those, partially that number's due to an outing where he walked 8 batters, but still, it just was not great overall. Now, he started the 2024 season in extended spring training. I've searched. If you know, let me know. I never could get any details on why, whether that was due to injury or they were just trying to limit his innings. But either way, his full season was a little bit delayed. He didn't start full season baseball until May. So, again, missed the first month of the season. His fastball, again, sits 95, 96. He can get to triple digits at times, upper 90s. So, I mean, he has a really big fastball. We talked about this last year. It has very good induced vertical break, which is what you hear a lot these days. Just getting ride up in the top of the zone, especially when he's able to throw it there. He struggles with it this time. Again, if he can locate it up in the zone, he's going to blow it by a lot of hitters. And honestly, with that velocity, he can blow it by a lot of hitters if he can just throw it anywhere near the zone. And the games I watched, went back and watched in 2024, I thought the control was okay with the fastball. But again, certainly something that has to be improved upon, because big league hitters, they don't really care how hard you throw it. They're going to be able to catch up to it. Now, the slider, which sits in the mid to upper 80s, is an elite pitch. This is the pitch that just really stands out when you watch him. In fact, Baseball America said he has the best slider in the Braves system going into 2025. So it's a really good slider. And again, it's an elite velocity, at least on the fastball. So right there, his fastball slider has the makings of him getting to the big league level. That's elite movement on this slider. He has a changeup he's working on. He also doesn't necessarily label it as a changeup. He just labels it as his second slider because it just has some downward break to it. But either way, a really good slider, breaking away from righties. It's deadly when he can locate that fastball in the zone and throw that slider off of it. He can throw it to righties and to lefties as well. I even saw him front door it to some righties a little bit, which is, just tells me that you feel very confident with that pitch. But obviously, in order for him to be a starter, he's going to need to really, hone in on that third pitch. And I know everybody's going to say and look at Spencer Strider and what he can do with 2 pitches. Spencer Strider is unique. He has 2 pitches that are elite, and he can command both of them. And hopefully he can do that coming back from another elbow surgery. There are just some big extremes with Jhancarlos Lara, especially in 2024. His final start in Rome in August, at the end of August, he pitched 6 scoreless, hitless innings with 1 walk and 12 strikeouts. That's what he is capable of. And I watched that game. Those grasshoppers, or whatever they're called, they didn't have a chance. Tamar Johnson, one of the top prospects in all of baseball, he looked foolish facing Lara. It's just he has that type of stuff. When he is on, when he can control it, it's hard to hit him. He just has that good of stuff. But the very next start, which is his first start at Double-A, he walked 8 batters and only struck out 2 over 2 1/3 innings. So you talk about extremes. You go from 6 hitless, scoreless innings, not allowing a hit, only allowing 1 walk with 12 strikeouts, and then you follow that up walking 8 batters and only getting through 2 1/3. Granted, it was his first start at Double-A, so making that jump, sometimes can be a little shaky in their first start. But then in a game on August 27th at Pensacola, he allowed 1 hit over 5 innings, but he walked 6 batters. So you see the extremes in one outing for him as well. He goes 5 innings, he only allows 1 hit, but he walks 6 batters. It's just, again, the stuff is there. It's just you never know where the stuff's going to be. He never allowed more than 4 earned runs in a game. So, again, even with the shaky command, even with the high whip, he didn't give up a ton of runs in any one outing. But, again, it's just how deep can he go in the game, because you don't know how many pitches he's going to have to throw to get through it because of all the walks. But he is difficult to hit. Again, doesn't give a lot of hits. It's one big thing for him. Can he command it? Can he throw enough strikes in order to get through 5-6 innings and not walk everybody and not run into a big home run after you walk 2 or 3 batters? But again, the stuff is electric. It's easy to see. I think he has some of the best stuff in the system, especially just the fastball slider combination. Nothing really changed for me on rewatches. I'm still just as excited about him this offseason as I was last offseason, to me, there's only two possible outcomes. Technically, there's always a third. He just never makes it. But to me, there's only two possible outcomes for Jhancarlos Lara. He's either going to figure it out as a starter, figure out the control, and he's going to become a top of the rotation pitcher. I fully believe that. But if he doesn't, that fastball slider combination, he's still going to be good enough to be a setup, maybe even a closer. Now, you're still going to have to get the control down, even to be a reliever at the big league level. But for me, there's two options for Lara. He's either going to be a top of the rotation starter, or he's going to be a big league reliever, or the third option out there, he's just never going to figure out the control, and he's not going to be able to throw enough strikes to pitch at the big league level. But again, I think he is that good that those are his most likely outcomes, that he's either a top of the rotation starter or he's a setup closer type in the bullpen. He has that good of stuff. If they wanted to go ahead and fully transition him to the bullpen in 2025, which I don't think they should do. If it were me, I'd give him one more year at, give him this year at AA, stretch it out as a starter. Can he figure it out? Because that upside is so high. But I've talked about it on here a lot, knowing when to pull that plug for a guy who has great stuff. When do you pull that plug and say, okay, let's move you to the bullpen, try to settle you down there? And it's not like you can't go back. We've seen it with Ronaldo Lopez. We've seen it with Jordan Hicks. We've seen it with Grant Holmes a little bit. We've seen it, or going to see it now, with a guy in Clay Holmes. It's not like you can't go back. But again, he is still a young guy. You don't want to give up on that upside because, as I said, if he can figure it all out, I think it's top of the rotation type of stuff. But if it were me, I'd give him all at 2025 at AA as a starter, see if he can get on track, see if he can get it going and get better command and develop that third pitch and continue to work on him as a starter. But if they wanted to make that transition for him in the bullpen, I think he could be in this bullpen by the middle of the season, depending on, obviously how well things go in that transition and if he can throw enough strikes. But the stuff's already that good. I mean, what I'm basically saying is the stuff is that good to get big league hitters out. I believe that. It's just, when do you want to make that switch? And what you could do is, let them start for half the season, and then maybe in the second half of the season, depending on how things go, depending on what your needs are at the big league level, then start to make that transition. Look, Max Fried was in the bullpen a lot to start with in his big league career. Spencer Strider started his big league career in the bullpen. It's not like you can't go back to that, but I would like to at least see him get another year to try to continue to develop as a starter. And then, like I said, maybe at the end of the year, you see what you have with him. Maybe you call him up and give him a shot in the bullpen, because I think the stuff is that good for Lara. So I'm still very excited. He's still going to be very high on my list because I think the upside is very high. So loved going back, watching him again, especially if you get a chance, go watch that start where he struck out 6 batters, his last start at high A. It was really, really impressive stuff. You'll walk away from watching that start thinking he is the top prospect in the system and that he has ace potential, because when he was on like that and he's just unhittable, it is a lot of fun to watch, and you can just dream on what he can potentially be. All right, next, let's get into our winter meetings preview here. There is a lot of news going around. Max Fried news as well. His decision could be coming soon. Juan Soto's decision could be coming really soon. What does this all mean for the Atlanta Braves? Are they going to get in on this at all? And we got some quotes from Alex Anthopoulos talking about the luxury tax. We'll discuss all that here next. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. And while you're there, go ahead and check out those World Series odds for 2025. I'm telling you, those odds are going to change here over the next week or so based on what happens in these winter meetings. Your Braves right now still have the third best odds. Will they at the end of this week? Make sure you go to FanDuel.com to check that out. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/playsafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way that you play. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, the winter meetings officially get underway on Monday. There'll be a lot of stuff happening probably late on Sunday night. We may get this Juan Soto deal official. It sounds like it's coming down to the two New York teams. They're bidding against one another. Sounds like it could be well into the 700s at this point. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. And then as we talked about last week, once that does happen, feels like a lot of the big dominoes will start to fall, and particularly Corbin Burnes and Max Fried. And Max Fried, his market, it sounds like he could be getting over $200 million as well, which is far above even what I thought he would potentially get. I mean, if he gets over $200 million, good for him. First of all, he's earned it. He's given the Braves a lot of good years. I have no ill will towards Max Fried. That is a risky business for a guy that, going into his 30s has had some injury risk. Again, I love Max Fried. I would love to have him back. I'm not necessarily too worried about him being an effective pitcher, but I am a little worried about him being a healthy pitcher long term. And $200 million is not my money, but that'd be a lot for me to go out for Max Fried. So a lot of that news kind of swirling around out there right now. I think Bob Nightingale was the one who had posted about Max Fried potentially getting over $200 million. So we'll keep an eye on that. Like I said, once I would imagine that the Soto stuff is still going to happen first, but once that does happen, I think we'll see Fried and Burnes probably go pretty quickly as well. So that'll be interesting to see when that happens and what Max Fried ultimately gets. Now, Alex Anthopoulos there. So a couple of questions from him, a couple of answers from him that I want to talk about really quickly. AA said that going over the luxury tax won't be a hindrance and that the Braves are in win now mode. It's great to hear him say that because that's what we all think. That's what we all believe, that the luxury tax shouldn't be a hindrance because they're in win now mode. But the actions are telling us otherwise, at least for now. And it's still very early in the offseason. There's still a lot that can happen. But yeah, that's what we've been saying. That's how we feel as fans. This is a win now mode. Forget the luxury tax. Go make a move. Now, again, I just think from a business perspective, Alex is still not going to hand out $200 million to a pitcher going into their 30s that's had a little bit of injury history, even to the elbow. Alex just isn't going to do that. It's not good business long term. Alex isn't going to hand out almost $200 million to a shortstop who has had a couple of good, really good years and some just okay years. He's just not going to do that for a guy that's going into the back half of their career. He's just not going to. And that, right or wrong, whether you agree with that, that is just not Alex's MO, to give a lot of money to players in the back half of their career. He'd much rather extend a guy early in their career, pay them through their 20s and into their early 30s. We just haven't seen it. So, again, until I see it, I'm not going to believe it. But it was at least, I guess, nice, refreshing, whatever you want to say, that the luxury tax won't be a hindrance. And here's something we haven't really discussed about the luxury tax. My time's kind of running short here, but you do get a bigger overage charge going into the luxury tax for a third straight year, a 50% overage charge. But if you go over by, $10 million, you're paying $5 million in taxes. And that's a lot to me. It's a lot to you, most likely. But that's not a lot to them. You really have to go over by a good chunk before it really starts becoming a huge burden on your payroll. And that's the way that Alex says he views it, is that the tax just goes on top of his payroll money. So again, you could go $20 million over the luxury tax threshold, pay a $10 million tax on that, and just add that to your payroll. $10 million is a lot. That's not nothing. But again, it's not something that should necessarily prevent you from going over. And if you were willing to go 20 million more over and essentially pay a $10 million charge on that, then you have 40 million, more to play with this offseason. That gives you a lot of room to do other things. So again, I agree. Certainly as a fan, you're in win now mode. The tax shouldn't be a hindrance to you. The other thing that he said is they're hoping that Days will be a high leverage guy. Yeah, so are we. That's nothing new there. And that Grant Holmes might be used as a starter. Again, nothing really new or surprising there, but we'll see. Some people are reading into that and thinking that the Braves aren't going to go get a starter. I don't think that's true. And they still have to go get a starter, but you also likely go into spring training giving Grant Holmes a chance as a starter to see what he can do. Because like I like Grant Holmes in that role that, let's say they go get a starter and, Bryce Elder, Ian Anderson, whoever earns that final role. I still like Grant Holmes in that bullpen as a swingman, sixth starter every now and again. I think that is just a great role for him if, he doesn't earn a spot just in the rotation as a starter, which, based on what we saw, I think he possibly could. Getting through that lineup a second and third time, be tricky, and you're really not going to see that in spring training. But yeah, it's not surprising that he's going to get a chance. Now, quickly getting into the winter meetings preview here. Let's get these high-priced free agents out of the way. Soto, go ahead and sign. Hopefully, again, it's either late Sunday night or Monday morning that we hear of a Soto signing. Here is Ken Rosenthal saying that Michael Conforto to the Dodgers. So there's another name off the board, another name going to the Dodgers. I know some people thought maybe Conforto would be a name for the Braves, but he's off the board now. We'll see what the price is here in a minute, probably once we're done recording. But again, he's somebody that's been kind of too up and down for me lately as well. But get the high-priced guys out of the way. Soto, go ahead and sign. Hopefully that opens up the door for Burns and Fried to go ahead and sign where they're going to. Roki Sasaki is going to be the big one. He's going to get posted at the winter meetings. Opens up a 45-day window for him to sign after January 15th when the international signing is open. So those are some big names that still need to come off the board. Once that happens, then we're going to see a lot of stuff take place. We're going to see a lot of these smaller size free agents get signed. We're going to see a lot of the bargain deals that Alex is probably waiting on, and even bigger, I think the trade market is going to start opening up. That's where I think the Braves are going to make the majority of their moves this offseason. At least if there's any big move to be made, I think it's going to be through trade. And for that to happen, you really kind of have to wait for all of these big names to get out of the way. So that's what I'm looking forward to at the winter meetings. Again, it might not be a lot for the Braves. We might not hear a lot of news for the Braves, but if, a lot of these big free agents can get out of the way, then it does obviously help move the offseason along. Be interesting to see Ken Rosenthal saying that the Dodgers are still in on Teoscar Hernandez. Conforto being a left-handed hitter, Teoscar right-handed hitter. I still like Teoscar Hernandez. I don't think he'd be a bad option for the Braves, but we'll see what this does to that potential reunion if Teoscar is still going to go back to the Dodgers, who apparently are just going to sign everybody that's available. All right, out of time here. Again, could be some more signings coming late Sunday night, unless it's something the Braves do. We'll be back on Monday night, recapping day one of the winter meetings. Thank you all for joining me here on this episode of Locked On Braves. Subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button. Leave me a comment down below. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen. Follow us on social media at shortstopball, at LockedOn_Braves. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.